Dear friends, very good morning. Today we shall complete Aristotle's Poetics. We have two remaining chapters, chapter 25 and chapter 26. So we would be completing this book, and then in our next lectures we shall start some new book or the new critic, new writer, new author. So let's go with the chapter 25. Chapter 25 of the Poetics is concerned basically about the objections of critics and then Aristotle's answer to such criticism. So there is nothing new that Aristotle gives us here in this chapter, but he only clarified some doubts, some suspicions, and some criticisms, some questions raised by the critics by his own. So let's see what is there in this chapter. So Aristotle examines a work of art from reader's point of view. So here it is from reader's point of view. Readers are asking the question, they are raising their doubts, and he is trying to clarify them. So he first examines the objections of the critics one by one, and then he proceeds to answer such criticism. So he gives 12 answers to 5 kind of censor. 5 kind of questions were there. 5 kind of the objections were raised by the critics on Aristotle's Poetics. So far the poetry is concerned. And what are these 5 kind of the censors or the 5 kind of the questions which were raised by the critics are the impossibility. That is, we have seen that Aristotle upholds for the poetry, for the drama, the impossibility, that is, should be shown. Improbability should be shown, making that possible. Irrationality, he is talking about the improbability. Irrationality is also sometimes shown in the drama. And he also upholds the immorality. Immorality, that is, that the drama can sometimes show the immoral things, making them moral. And in the same way, the contradictions, there are certain contradictions, and there is lack of technical correctness also, which the critics have found as the major defects of the Poetics, or we can say the thought of Aristotle regarding the poetry. Okay, now come one by one. Answer to the charge of impossibility. So what Aristotle says in this regard, he says that one should generally avoid the impossibility. It's okay, one should avoid impossibility. The thing which is not possible should not be shown in the drama. But there are sometimes these impossibilities are justified, because when they support the goal of imitation. So what is in fact the goal of imitation, the object of imitation? Then sometimes we have to also justify the impossibility if it is shown in the drama. So he gives the example of Pursuit of Hector, that is available in Homer's depiction. And we know very well that it was marvelous, but it was justified because it is not represented on the stage, and then second, it is desirable in poetic art. So the marvelous is also sometimes desirable in poetic art. So it is justified. Then he says, some impossibilities are accidental rather than essential. So some impossibilities are shown because they comes accidentally. They are not essential. He cites some example of a representation of a hind without horns. So that is the impossible thing according to the art of zoology. But it does not violate the poetic truth. So, the impossibility may be caused by the poet's wish to present a character as ought to be rather than as he is. So, sometimes the impossible thing is represented because the author's or the writer's intention about the character is that how he should be wrought to be rather than what he is. Then the impossibility is possible in the drama. Then he answers to the charge of irrationality. The charge of irrationality may be met by reference to received opinion. That is, men often believe what is false. We know that this is false. But the poet can use such beliefs without making any artistic error. That is, this charge can also be met out by pointing out that many things that seem irrational, not logical, in one period but were common practice in earlier periods. So, sometimes the drama can represent the irrational things because those irrational things were sometimes in past true. They were the common practice in their earlier periods. Maybe that now they seem irrational, illogical. So the drama or the play can show the irrational things sometimes. Then he gives the example that the Homer's statement that the Greek held their spears upright on their spikes. So it would have seemed erroneous, irrational to a contemporary of Aristotle that this is wrong. It's not possible. It is irrational. It should not be shown in the drama. But it is rational because Aristotle says that this practice was customary in Homeric times. So it was true at that time when the play was written. Now it may be irrational. So we have to accept some irrational things in drama as well. Then he answers the charge of immorality. In the same way, sometimes the playwright shows the immoral things in the play and they can be justified. Aristotle says that they can be justified because the thing that we think that it is immoral may be moral for others, may be moral at some time. So he says that in particular he should decide whether the object is to achieve a greater good or to avoid a greater evil. So what is the purpose, what is the object of the playwright to achieve, whether he wants to achieve the greater good or he wants to avoid a greater evil. Then he gives the example. He says that a person striking, टक्कर मारता है, is an evil in itself. किसी के टक्कर मारना ये अपने आप में गलत बात है. But to strike an assassin in order to prevent him from killing someone is clearly good. भाई किसी के आप टक्कर मारें या किसी के चोट मारें तो that is wrong, that is immoral. ऐसा नहीं करना चाहिए. लेकिन it sometimes become good and moral. कब? कि जब कोई व्यक्ति गलत काम कर रहा है तो उसको गलत काम करने से रोकने पे अगर उसके मारा जाता है, टक्कर मारी जाती है, उसको रोका जाता है तो that is moral, that is good, clearly good. So it can be accepted. So in the same way, sometimes the immoral, जिस चीज़ को हम ये कहते हैं कि ये तो immoral है, कि झूठ, जैसे झूठ बोलना immoral है, लेकिन कभी कभी झूठ बोला जा सकता है. अगर किसी की जान बच रही है तो अगर वहाँ झूठ बोला जाएगा तो वो झूठ इमोरल न हो करके मोरल होगा. दिस इज वॉट एंड दिस इज हाउ एरिस्टोटल डिफेंड्स द पोइट्री फ्रॉम द चार्ज ऑफ इमोरलिटी. देन what he says, let us see charge of lack of correctness. So he says that the use of strange words or metaphor, correctness. Aristotle says that the poets are obliged to use them by necessities of the poetic art. So the poets use the new words, new metaphors, strange words because of the necessities of the poetic art. So they should not be charged with that he has used so strange words, difficult words, very difficult to understand, and meaning is very difficult to bring. This charge is absolutely wrong because it is the demand of the art when the poet uses such words. So the poet has the poetic license for creating difficulty, and that can be resolved by changing the accent. Sometimes we can resolve that problem, the strange words, by changing the accent. He says that poetic syntax is sometimes ambiguous, definitely, and difficult, but this can be resolved by changing the punctuations. कई बार सिंटैक्स, कई बार स्ट्रक्चर जो है उसका बड़ा एम्बिग्यूस होता है, डबल मीनिंग वाला होता है, लेकिन उसमें अगर आप पंक्चुएशन चेंज करते हो तो उसका मीनिंग क्लियर हो जाएगा. जैसे हिंदी में एक उदाहरण है कि रोको मत जाने दो. अब आप सिंपली ये कहेंगे तो इट हैज़ द डबल मीनिंग, रोको मत जाने दो. सो हाउ यू विल क्लैरिफाई, हाउ विल यू मेक इट करेक्ट? You will use the punctuation. When you want to stop someone, you will say रोको और उसके आगे कोमा लगाएंगे कि रोको, मत जाने दो, उसको मत जाने दो, डोंट लेट हिम गो, स्टॉप कोमा, डोंट लेट हिम गो. और जब आप उसको जाने दे रहे हैं, नहीं रोकना चाहते, तो कहेंगे रोको मत, उसके आगे कोमा लगाएंगे जाने दो, अर्थात डोंट स्टॉप हिम, लेट हिम गो. So this is how the correctness, the structure or the syntax can be corrected. And Aristotle therefore says that such things or such the strange words or the strange structure are the need of the art, and then a poet can use them. Then he speaks about the charge of contradictions. Sometimes a passage seems very difficult. Some contradictions are there, involving some contradictions, and we are to consider all its possible senses, meanings. This passage may have this meaning also, and this passage may have this meaning. Sometimes we read the poems and we get the different interpretations of that poem, those lines, and that is possible. Then we have to select the one that seems most probable, most possible explanation. So Aristotle stops the critics by saying was impossible meaning to a passage without considering the alternatives, and then attack the poet for writing absurdity. So he defends the poets from the critics who elects them for their absurdities. कि भाई ये तो कन्फ्यूजन है, इसका मीनिंग क्लियर नहीं हो रहा है, उसके लिए उनको डिफेंड करता है कि नहीं, ये क्रिटिक्स are raising the false things because they don't have the other alternatives. Okay, this is what we have here in this chapter about the questions which were raised by the critics and the answers, the possible answers which were given by the writer of Poetics, Aristotle, the philosopher Aristotle. Now come with the chapter 26. This is the last chapter of our Poetics. And there is nothing in this chapter, there is only the repetition of the chapter number 6 and another chapter. That is, which one is the superior, whether tragedy or the epic. And we have already verified according to Aristotle, or Aristotle has already said very well that tragedy is superior than epic. So he says that the Poetics ends with a comparison of tragic and epic poetry. He regards tragedy as a superior to the epic. Why? Because tragedy contains all the pleasures प्लेजर गिविंग एलिमेंट्स ऑफ एपिक। सारे जो एपिक के एलिमेंट हैं वो सब ट्रेजेडी में होते हैं, विद एक्सेप्शन ऑफ म्यूजिक एंड स्पेक्टेकल। म्यूजिक और स्पेक्टेकल ट्रेजेडी में ज़्यादा होता है, ये जो है कि एपिक में नहीं होता है। एपिक में केवल 4 ही जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट एलिमेंट हैं प्ले के वो होते हैं, जिसमें प्लॉट है, जिसमें कैरेक्टर है, जिसमें थॉट है, जिसमें अदर जो है कि टेक्निक्स हैं ये होती हैं। उसमें म्यूजिक और जो स्पेक्टेकल है दैट इज़ ओनली अवेलेबल इन ट्रेजेडी। ट्रेजेडी का जो इफेक्ट है ऑन इमोशंस, so the effect of the tragedy on emotion is greater, stronger than of the epic, because it is being shorter, therefore its effect is greater, whereas we see that the epic is the larger, longer, and it is more concentrated. So tragedy is more concentrated to the one story, to the one plot, so and short to the one character, therefore it has the greater effect on our emotions than the narratives, than the epic. It has greater unity, definitely the tragedy has a greater unity than an epic. एपिक के अंदर तो कई सारी इवेंट्स हो सकती हैं, कई सारे कैरेक्टर्स हो सकते हैं और डिफरेंट प्लेसेज हो सकते हैं। सो एपिक डज नॉट रिक्वायर the strictness of the unity of action as well as of place as well as of time, but a tragedy requires the unity of action, the unity of time, the unity of place, according to Aristotle. Although Aristotle has not spoken so much about the unity of time and unity of place, he is more basically concentrate and speaks only the unity of action. So it better attains poetic effect to provide relief through catharsis of tragic emotions of pity and fear. So this can only be done in a tragedy. So catharsis, that is the arousing the pity and fear, that is the relief. The audience get relief through their emotions, through their pity, through their fear. They get relaxed. And therefore Aristotle prefers tragedy than epic. So dear student, this is what we have discussed about the poetics so long, because we had 26 chapters in all, and through these videos I hope that we have been very successful. I have been also been successful to impart whatever I have understood the poetics and I have given to you. So you must have enjoyed it, and now in our next and future videos we shall meet with new topics, new writer. Till then, thank you very much. Bye bye.